Work on pending legislation today and tomorrow, the only 2 days left in this year's regular legislative session. Local Fantasy 5 lottery winner talks about his luck, and FSU head coach Bobby Bowden visits the Panama City area today. Tom McGinnis has the sports, Kirk Clyde all the weather, this and more in an hour and a half of news coming up at 5 o'clock.
Outside of the Cape Canaveral.
The governor originally asked for a $10 million appropriation, but lawmakers have given him only $1 million for the spaceport. Sally Kidd, TV7 News.
George Bush has wound up his first European visit as president with a royal flourish as the luncheon guest of Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace today. Earlier in the day, the president held a meeting with British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. The talks were described as frank and friendly. NBC's Sandy Gilmore has details from London. Yesterday was the last day to buy an assault-type weapon in California without a special permit, and as David Garcia reports, business was booming.
Joe, that's it. Well, here is the situation for tonight. 98% chance of continued rain, but the good news is things will be shaping up for the latter part of the weekend. Let's show you where the rain is now. We go to live radar from Apalachicola and the National Weather Service, and you'll be able, any second now, I take my word for it, to see some great big thunderstorms. Here they are. You can see generally up towards Jackson County, back into Holmes County.
Government is also working to build a good guy image. Trucks have been driving through the streets of the capital carrying signs that read, "The People's Army loves the people." The recent resignation of House Speaker Jim Wright has created a division among members of Congress. U.S. Congressman Earl Hutto says he expects an end to the infighting once Wright's replacement gains control.
Well, I think Tom Foley is going to do a good job, and in his acceptance speech, he indicated that he would like to heal the wounds, if indeed there are wounds, and especially the bickering and the rancor that has pervaded the House in recent months.
Hutto says Foley does not have an enemy on either side of the House. He's been instrumental in settling arguments between the House and Senate on budget matters, and Hutto says Foley will bring these peacekeeping skills to the Speaker's chair.
I don't think we should use military force because we're guilty then of some of the things that we purportedly are against. But we ought to do more diplomatically than we have in the past. Colonel North would have been effective if they hadn't stopped him.
Trying to solve it diplomatically just isn't working. They need to ship in a few tough guys from the Marines and do a little work, maybe. It'd be a good idea.
Let's try to use military force to get the hostages out that are already there?
Yes. That's the primary thing. We have American people over there. We're supposed to be the top country in the world, but we haven't got the power to get these 5 or 6 people out. Where does that put us?
Do you think if we use military force it would send a message to terrorists around the world?
I think that it would definitely put America in jeopardy of terrorism, and they better be prepared for it if they did such.
Join us again next week for another question on 7 Opinions.
Aimed at curbing acid rain, cutting smog, and reducing toxic emissions. NBC's Steve Handelsman has more on the story from Washington. 7 inmates at the Coffee County Jail at Elba in southeast Alabama filed a lawsuit against the county. County officials there confirmed today they've been served with a suit which alleges overcrowding, lack of adequate medical care, and poor conditions at the jail. Coffee County has been under court order for several years to relieve overcrowding at the Elba lockup. County officials are making plans for a 60-bed addition to the jail and say those plans will be part of their defense in the lawsuit. A State Department spokesman today refused to answer any questions about Fong Li-jur, the Chinese dissident who has taken refuge in the U.S. Embassy in Beijing. But officials did say that contrary to Chinese propaganda, a massacre did take place back on June the 3rd, and that a roundup of dissidents appears to be a violation of human rights.
West of Whittier, which is right down there in the L.A. basin. Happened just a few minutes before noon our time today. 4.5, though, that's not bad. It just kind of shakes things up a little bit, maybe knocks a few cups off the table, a few jars off the grocery store shelves. You really need to get up above about a 5.5 to really start rattling and rolling. So no flooding problems at all on the Apalachicola. Such is not the case. Choctawhatchee and Caryville had crested yesterday and fell about 2/3 of a foot today, but it did end up being about 2 feet above flood stage, cresting at a little over 14 feet. Of course, those folks had some of the worst flooding problems in northwest Florida because they got some areas, of course, more than 10 inches of rain, you will recall last week. A couple of tropical waves down in the Caribbean that seem to be tracking to the west, but the good news is there is no signs of any type of development there.
Soldiers aren't hassling the people standing in line outside looking for a way to leave China. The city of Beijing appears on the surface to have returned to pretty much normal activity. But Bill Lakata tells us the people and the soldiers on the streets remain tense. The aide to former HUD Secretary Samuel Pierce took the Fifth Amendment today in testimony before a House committee in Washington investigating alleged embezzlement in the Federal Housing Agency. NBC's I.J. Hudson has the story. Well, even though NBC has decided to run some never-before-seen episodes of Miami Vice starting tomorrow night here on TV7, the show has been canceled as a first-run series. But as Bob Mayer reports, Vice will continue to be a big moneymaker. Top of the news at 5 o'clock. The Air Force this morning successfully launched its newest and most powerful Titan IV rocket after almost 8 months of delays and minor technical problems. The rocket deployed a $180 million early warning satellite capable of detecting enemy missile launches. This was the first of at least 23 Titan IV rockets being built for the Air Force. The Pentagon plans to use the Titans to launch the military payloads formerly carried aboard the space shuttles. Well, the Democrats in Washington have picked a new leadership team for the U.S. House, and House Speaker Tom Foley says he's confident the new team can represent not only the Democratic Party, but the entire country. NBC's Steve Handelsman reports on the men chosen today. The government is also taking a hard line against Americans. 2 U.S. journalists were ordered out of China this morning, accused of violating restrictions imposed during martial law. One of the reporters works for the Associated Press, the other for the Voice of America. Meanwhile, the Chinese government is waging a propaganda war itself that may be winning over the people. Bill Lagatuga reports.
A little closer to our region from yesterday on into today, a weak tropical wave down south of Puerto Rico, but still high pressure is in control for the Atlantic, reaching on back into the Caribbean, into the Gulf of Mexico, Florida. Just a beautiful day, but you might be able to see some of the little color, little green, little yellow, red at the edge of your screen. By the way, a lot of talk last couple of weeks about all that sargassum, a.k.a. June grass, some people just say gook, out in the water, and those little bladders on it that are filled with carbon dioxide, that just makes them float on the water, and it floats on in. And people, of course, once there's one in the Gulf, you got to know about it, so let's give you the update here. Here's the view we showed you last night at 10 o'clock of TD number 1. Remember, winds have to get up to 39 miles an hour to get a name, which would be Allison. If it can make it by, it'd still be alive this time tomorrow, we may have something to worry about by the middle of next week.
Strengthening right now. If it survives the next 12 hours, though, it might develop a little bit. Elsewhere, about a 50-50 chance of additional light rain tonight. It's tapering down to nothing.
The evacuation today at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport after the pilot noticed a warning light indicating an engine fire. The passengers and 6 crew members of the Boeing 737 jet used emergency chutes onto the runway about 1 p.m. The pilot ordered the evacuation as he was preparing to take off for Tampa. The warning light stayed on after the pilot pumped foam into the engine. No one was seriously injured. Well, breastfeeding can be one of the best things you do to help a baby get a healthy start in life. But as Dr. Red Duke tells us tonight, the mother's health also plays a very important role. With $15 million, Lottery Secretary Rebecca Paul says the 5 winners tied a record on New Year's Eve. 5 people then split a $31.5 million jackpot. If you were a second-place winner last night, guessing 5 of the 6 correct, you
win. Air show. But take a closer look, and you see the pilots are on the ground.
You get a good perspective of what the airplane is doing, and you can pack it in your car and go home afterwards. There's not a transportation problem. It's just fun to put a plane through its paces while standing on the ground controlling it.
The model airplanes cost up to $2,000. They're operated by a handheld transmitter. The planes can fly 100 miles an hour, do rolls, loops, and spins.
Model flying seems to be a way to satisfy my love for flying without getting physically hurt or going monetarily broke.
The Model Airplane Show is sponsored by the Sandy Creek Experimental Aircraft Association. This group tries to preserve some of the nostalgia of our earlier flying days.
When this country was a little bit smaller, where they could come out to the airport, do a little bit of work, help out refueling an airplane or washing it, and we'll go take them for a ride and introduce aviation to the younger set.
The EAA plans to hold more air shows in the future, and hopefully the weather will cooperate so all the planes will get a chance to show their stuff. Catherine Adams, 13 Eyewitness News.
Cash registers were ringing as last-minute shoppers rushed to make that special buy for Dad on his day. A local sales clerk says the hardware and men's clothing departments were the busiest. Donna Pomeroy says there were many moms, daughters, and even a few dads buying Father's Day gifts.
Oh, it was tremendous. I mean, we were so busy. We had lines everywhere. It really kept us going yesterday. About 2 or 3 of us running the registers.
Pomeroy says one gift, shorts, seems to be the hottest selling item over the past few days.
Now, what's the difference between a tropical storm, or should I say a tropical wave, and just say an upper-level low? Well, tropical waves, they move to the west, while a tropical, or should I say upper-level lows, they generally track, like most of the weather systems do, towards the east. Some of those strong westerlies in the Caribbean have been diminishing. Therefore, a couple little tropical waves have developed. We'll keep an eye on them, but I don't think anything is going to happen.
County last September. In the forecast today, lots of rain, partly cloudy skies. Temperatures in the mid right now here on Panama City Beach. It's partly cloudy, 78 degrees. That's a look at news and weather for this hour. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.
It looks pretty ominous here in the Gulf, this little low-pressure system, but it does not have any organized circulation to it at all. They're going to watch it. They've already today sent the hurricane hunters into it from Keesler Air Force Base over in Biloxi, and they found no organized rotation. However, tremendous thunderstorms. They're going to be moving, though, fortunately for us, into places like Lake Charles, Louisiana, back up into Houston, where they really don't need any rain, and they could get 10 inches of rain this weekend.
To clean up the 250,000 gallons of oil spilled from a barge in Galveston Bay, but the damage appears to be relatively minor. Ken Kalthoff has more. Of the 3 major oil spills since Friday, the one that appears to be posing the biggest cleanup problem is in the Delaware River. A Coast Guard spokesman says the heavy fuel oil sinks, which makes it difficult to remove from the river. An estimated 800,000 gallons of oil leaked from a Uruguayan tanker that ran aground yesterday. Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell voiced his opposition to the Supreme Court's recent ruling, calling flag burning an act of free speech. In a television interview this morning, Mitchell said freedom of speech is enough. It is not necessary to physically demonstrate it by burning the flag. And later in this newscast, area residents here in Bay County have 6 winning numbers in last night's drawing. And rather than annual payments for the next 20 years, they will just get their money in cold hard cash. The total prize after taxes turned out to be about $3.6 million rather than $7 million as originally estimated. The 9 winners will each receive $399,600. All tickets were purchased in Central and South Florida. There was sunshine this morning, but as usual, those afternoon...
And let me back out of the way. You can see this heavy cloud cover associated with it. Max winds around 35 miles an hour. It's still stationary. It's about 80 miles south of Matagorda, Texas at this time. Looking for tides around 3 feet above normal and a possibility of maybe up to 10 inches of rain over the next couple.
But that may be one of the most unpopular decisions the Supreme Court has ever made.
I think it's very wrong because, I mean, that's the only thing that the United States has like sacred now that you can't do, and then they want to, so it'd be legal to do it, and I think that's very wrong because it's like, just, I mean, all the people that died for the flag, and then they want to burn it, it's like, it'd be nothing then. So I think that's wrong.
I don't think it should happen. I just don't think it's right at all. They shouldn't fool the flag at all. I mean, they just shouldn't burn it.
Right. What about you?
I think people are forgetting about the reason of why we got the flag. We went through several wars. We went through pure hell to keep that flag, and nobody's got the right to destroy it or massacre it in any manner.
I think it's wrong. I couldn't believe that. It really hurts me as a American citizen. It really hurt Stephen's eye.
I think the guy should be hung. I don't think it should have been, he should have done it.
Well, generally speaking, though, do you think that the Supreme Court's decision that says that it's not unconstitutional to burn the flag?
I think it is unconstitutional. I don't think he should have done it. I don't think it was right. I don't think the Supreme Court was right in saying that.
I think it stinks.
But their argument is that everybody has the right to show their expression.
Yeah, they have a right to leave, too, if they don't like to be as a flag. I served in the Korean War, and I got a son in the National Guard, and I thought it was very degrading to both of us. Anybody else serves in the military defending the flag. If they don't like it, we don't have our doors closed here like other countries. If they don't like it, they can leave.
It was wrong. Just my opinion, he was wrong.
But what about the right to free expression?
Still wrong, it's my opinion. I'm not sure.
What do you think of the Supreme Court's decision concerning the burning of the U.S. flag?
Certainly don't agree with it. And a lot of our fellow Americans died and for that flag and what it represented, and I certainly don't agree with their decision.
But what about the argument that everybody has the right to free expression?
Up to a point, but when it comes to that point, I think I draw the line on that.
Ridiculous. I mean, the American flag has no business being burned anywhere, regardless of the purpose for it. I mean, you know, that's the most ridiculous form of disrespect I've ever seen in my entire life.
Now, what about the Supreme Court's justification that everybody has the right to free expression?
They have other ways of doing it. There's other ways of doing it other than just burning the flag. It's ridiculous. I mean, you know, there's plenty of ways that you can express your feelings other than burning the flag.
Why burn the flag? I mean, the court system's messed up, man. You don't approve of them letting them burn our flag. To me, that's ridiculous. You know, the military and all the people who handle flags legally, you go through the trouble of not touching it on the ground and all these things, then they allow them to go ahead and burn it and just disgrace it. I think that's the worst thing you could do. Anybody in this country believes in the flag. But then, like I said a while ago, if they don't like it, it's that bad to disgrace the flag, they ought to leave. So, you know, these foreign countries do it bad enough. We don't have to have it here, right?
I think it's the most god-awful thing I ever heard of in my life. I had people, including the husband, who fought and died for it.
What about their argument that you have the right to free expression?
I think it's great that we can have free expression, but I think that's taking that free expression a little bit too far.
Sir, what about you?
I think it's terrible. I fought for the American flag, and I think it's terrible. I think a person should have the freedom of speech, but I don't think they should burn the American flag that the boys fought for and died for.
I strongly believe that people have the right to free expression, but myself being in the military, I don't believe in burning the flag.
How about you? You have an opinion?
About the same way. Feel about the same, yeah.
Join us next week for another edition of 7 Opinions. Jim Sagina, TV7 News.
This has been 7 Opinions, a weekly feature of TV7 News giving area citizens an opportunity to express themselves on topical issues of the day.
And that's our weekend report. Thanks for watching. We'll see you during the week.
Where's this storm going to go? Very slow movement to the northeast at 6 miles an hour. It looks like it's going to linger another 24 hours or so. No longer a tropical storm. It's a tropical depression because the winds are below 39 miles an hour. Maximum winds at 35. But what they're starting to do effective today is they're going to move it over from 108 degrees very slowly. It's going to take a few weeks and move it over to 98 degrees, which is about the longitude of, say, San Antonio, Texas. Why? So we can get a better view for you of parts of the Atlantic and the Caribbean for tropical storm season, which, as you know, is underway. Remember, there should be 2 of them up there. There should be goes east and goes west. But goes west, it broke last year. We take you now to Baton Rouge and see what's happening. We're in the house. We're moving the TV out. The house is flooded here. I think all the carpet salesmen, we mentioned this last night, all the carpet salesmen from Louisiana and Mississippi, they go over to sell the carpet. That's about the only people that like weather like this.
Continuity of our newscast the same as during the week, but as you know, news is 24 hours a day and it doesn't stop on the weekends, so we try and make it as interesting and as accurate as we can because they only have one chance to see. This is his newscast, that he cares and that he's honest and that he knows what he's talking about.
Nasty.
Well, it's getting that way, and it's going to keep building. Let's get right to it and check our current conditions right now. Temperature is 84. It still feels like 102 out there this evening. And or very poorly defined position on the center. It's at 25.2 north, 90.8 west with the max winds 25 knots, gust to 35 knots. It's moving northwest at 8. If we can take a look at the track on this now, we'll show you which way it's going. You can see these are 5 o'clock p.m. positions. The new one hasn't quite made it yet, but by tomorrow afternoon, tropical storm status, and then by Tuesday going on into the Houston area with around 65 knot winds. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. As far as our jet stream, when it climbs up here, we'll see how that's starting to respond. You can see this bulge still occurring up in the Midwest. That's going to let this storm keep sliding towards the northwest, and it should move at around 8 to 10 knots. Here's a top view of it. You can see, again, this whole band of clouds. If we take a look at the close-up here, you can see how it's starting to fill up the whole Gulf. And now the side shot on it is quite impressive this evening. A lot of clouds starting to build in here, some very heavy thunderstorms to our south, and they're going to drift towards the northwest. Let's check the local radar. Not much on it. We did have some showers just off of Apalachicola, but they've dissipated, and they should form out here. But the land-based radar just can't get to it, so you can see that we're going to have a lot of rain in the Gulf. And at 9:30, storm position is at 25.2 north, 91.0 west, which is 375 miles southeast of Galveston. It's now turned and went more to the northwest. And a buoy out there says winds are 35, gusting to 45, so it is building.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Jerry. We'll keep our eyes posted. That's your weekend news from all of us here at 13 Eyewitness News. Have a great night.
And just with the 5 o'clock update, we've got our first hurricane of the year to talk about. It is Hurricane Chantal. You can see the movement of it moving towards the northwest at about 9 miles an hour. That means it's moving away from us.
Is now a full-fledged hurricane.
Hurricane warnings are in effect for the Gulf Coast from Freeport, Texas to Morgan City, Louisiana. We go now to Captain Norm Miller in our weather station for the latest on Hurricane Chantal.
Okay, and here's the animation that represents about 10 hours worth of Chantal. Beginning in this area, you can see it moving pretty much toward the northwest. Looks like it's aimed right at Galveston. And it actually developed over this period of time. 10 hours, went from tropical depression to tropical storm, and then just the last hour to a full-fledged hurricane. So it is a powerful storm, gaining some strength as it moves along. We probably think it'll be about a Category 2 when it does make a landfall. It's a pretty hefty storm, especially for this time of year. This looks further inland than it really is. We'll bring the crosshairs in and show you the current location of Chantal, 27.4 north, and the longitude 92.5 west, max wind 75 miles an hour, minimal hurricane, and moving toward the northwest right at about 9 miles per hour. We'll have some more information on this and all our regular weather just a little bit later on.
Thank you, Norm. The good news is the hurricane's going the other way.
That is indeed the good news.
The bad news is it's still going to rain anyway.
Probably
right?
going to rain tomorrow. We'll get a 60% chance of thunderstorms, but don't go west, please, because the hurricane, it looks like it is going to affect, say, from Lake Charles over to the Houston area. All the details on Chantal coming up next. Here is what our main area of concern is. It is Chantal. Of course, you can take it back to the early view this morning, and you can see we had a very nice day. The weekend, actually, was a little nicer than we thought. High pressure is in control. The storm takes the path of least resistance, and that has, fortunately for us, taken the storm to the west of us. And it's going to disturb things enough so we're going to have a 60% chance of thunderstorms tomorrow, but not really any major impact for us. They do have the hurricane warnings in effect for parts of extreme northeastern Texas. Now let's show you exactly where they're in effect. The hurricane warnings just for this small area from Morgan City back on over past Galveston. Tropical storm warnings in effect back to Puerto Cana to Mobile.
See a little bit better. At the first frame of it, right down in here, it starts off as just a tropical depression, graduates very quickly to tropical storm, and as of about an hour and a half ago, it became Hurricane Chantal. And we see here with the crosshairs we'll bring in, we'll show you the location. First, let's get that side view. The side view, keep in mind you're looking in this way, so it's going to make it seem like it's over land, but not really. The current location, 27.4 north, longitude 92.5 west, maximum sustained winds are doing about 75 miles an hour. It's moving toward the northwest at 9 miles an hour. Absolutely no threat to us. If it were going to be, it would take plenty of time for it to get to be that way, but it is interesting to watch anyway and to note how fast that thing grew up. Well, let's take a look at our conditions aloft. We'll have a look at the jet stream.
Picture is getting very busy, seems like.
Sure is, and this one, Dean, looks like it could pick up to be a pretty good size one later on there. We'll take a look at it in a minute. Let's see what we have outside right now. It's 81, feels about like 102. Relative humidity 85%. Storm Dean and it has a good chance of strengthening if it can take care of its vertical wind shear problem. Location is 16.8 north, 55.0 west. Max winds are 50 miles an hour, and it's moving at a pretty good clip right now. West-northwest, about like so, at 18 miles an hour. That's pretty fast for a storm. It'll probably slow down as it approaches the islands there and increase a little bit in its circular rotational speed. 50 miles an hour is a pretty hefty start, though, for a tropical storm. Here we see the jet stream arcing around over as the single biggest controlling factor. What once was a hurricane, this, by the way, is the first hurricane I can remember to ever break up before it went ashore. When it hit Texas, it was not a hurricane anymore, tropical storm. Now it's nothing. It has no tropical characteristics. Angled to drift northward is just a big area of rain. Our rain is parted. It's off to the east of us, a little bit to the north, most of it off to the west, and the cloud cover goes right along with that. A little bit of cloud cover to the east of us. Let's look on our live radar on the 100-mile range. Nope, nothing there. We haven't seen anything since about shortly before 6 o'clock. It's been a quiet evening. National radar will tell us where it is. We're in this little part right here. We have it that far out.
Okay, we'll hope for the best. Thanks a lot, Norm.
$50 million British communications payload into orbit. The three-stage Delta booster built by McDonnell Douglas blasted off at 5:59 p.m. Central Time from Cape Canaveral. 30 minutes after liftoff, officials reported the Marco Polo 1 satellite had reached orbit. The launch is an important milestone in a commercial space program. The program was started when former President Reagan told NASA to stop launching payloads for commercial customers after the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded in 1986.
Felix was downgraded to a tropical depression last night. It'll keep the name. That's just on the outside chance it could redevelop. It'll keep that same name if it becomes a tropical storm again. Not likely over cold water and headed into even more trouble. The thing of interest right here is tropical depression number 10 off the coast of Africa, 10.9 north, 24.1 west. Max winds at 35, moving west at 20, likely to develop into a tropical storm in the next 24 hours. If it does, this will be the first time since 1936 we've had 7 named storms before the 1st of September. The jet stream.
Well, here's the movement from yesterday on into today. You might have noticed on the European view that we had there for you a big area of high pressure to the north here of Gabrielle, which means it's going to pretty much track towards almost the due west, maybe head a little bit north of west, but continuing generally in that direction for the next few days. Here are the coordinates if you've been tracking the storm. We'd like to start to 11.4 north, 32 west. Now, if you've got a TV7 hurricane tracking chart, you can't fit it on there quite yet because the chart doesn't start until 46 degrees west longitude.
To the south, as you can see, around the Big Bend area of the Florida Panhandle, back around Panama City, just south of Bluntstown, a little shower there. A little bit of rain near Albany, but elsewhere it's pretty quiet.
Yeah, Gabrielle, we gave her 24 hours and jumped the gun by about 20 on us. So
she's made it, huh?
Really winding up the engines there.
Oh, boy.
Well, in fact, we've got some spectacular footage of it in a minute. Let's have a look. Now, it's far enough west, you can see it right here. The eye is still a little bit iced over with cirrus clouds, but it's winding up to maximum winds of 75 miles an hour right now, just minimum hurricane strength. Moving due west, it's 17 miles per hour, as they all do in that location. It's a classic Cape Verde type storm, and this could be a real powerful storm by the time it gets all the way across the Atlantic. Could wind up to 100-mile-plus winds in a couple of days here.
The investigation into the double homicide involving members of the prominent Lark family continues today. TV7's Jim Sagina has an update on the case.
4-year-old James Lark Jr., better known as Skipper, was jailed without bond Wednesday afternoon after being charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Lark waived his rights to a formal first appearance hearing before Judge Judy Pittman and sat quietly in the Bay County courtroom. Lark is accused of gunning down his 48-year-old stepmother, Carol Lark, and her reported boyfriend, 42-year-old Wesley Butler, at their 3605 Delwood Drive home late Tuesday. Sheriff Guy Tennell says Lark produced a .38 caliber handgun and fired 5 shots at the victims, 3 striking his stepmother in the chest, with the others striking Butler, also in the chest area. Carol Lark was pronounced dead on the scene, while Butler died 4 hours later on the operating table at Bay Medical Center. Skipper Lark's girlfriend witnessed the shooting, but she was unable to tell authorities what led to the gunshots being fired. Tennell says there is much speculation about a motive in the double homicide, adding that there was some animosity between Carol and her stepson since his father's death several years ago. It's also reported that alcohol played a part in the slayings. Some sources say Skipper Lark had been drinking that afternoon. Deputies remained here on the crime scene late Wednesday afternoon, searching for any clues that could shed light on what happened here late Tuesday. But the many questions that remain may be left unanswered. Jim Sagina, TV7 News.
Beach Road apparently will begin in the next several months. The Florida Department of Transportation has announced the four-laning of 4.1 miles of the Back Beach Road between Edgewater Road and Mandy Lane. White Construction Company of Chiefland was the apparent low bidder for the project at $4.1 million. Construction should begin in December or January, and the company has just under a year to complete the 4-mile project. Panama City Beach Mayor Philip Griffith says he's pleased.
I think it's one of the greatest things and one of the biggest booms we're going to have in a long time. It's something that is long overdue. It's been needed. It's dangerous back there, and we're very excited about it.
Yes, sir. I'd have bet you a week's pay that I would not have seen that in my lifetime.
Not a moment too soon.
But we're not going to see any storms this week, are we?
No, we certainly are not.
Skipper faces 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the shootings at the Lark Estate on Delwood Drive. Bay County Sheriff's deputies were on the scene by 5 o'clock yesterday. Skipper's stepmother, Carol Lark, was dead on arrival. She was shot 3 times at close range with a .38 caliber handgun. Also dead is her friend, Wes Butler, also known as Sandy Beach, a former radio personality at Island 106. Butler had 2 gun wounds and died last night at Bay Medical Center.
An investigation is still underway out here at the Lark home. As of late today, no new details surfaced about the killings last night. And the big question still remains not only why it happened, but exactly what happened in the Lark living room last night.
While the Sheriff's Department looks for more clues, 13 Eyewitness News examined some court records today. Those records show evidence of some family squabbles over the Lark fortune. Carol's late husband, James, who was also Skipper's father, passed away almost 5 years ago. He founded Miracle Strip Amusement Park and Shipwreck Island, 2 popular beach attractions. The elder Lark's estate is worth at least $5 million. Their Courtney Point home alone recently listed for $1.25 million on the real estate market. Kathy Oliver, 13 Eyewitness News.
Tonight, dozens of friends and loved ones of Carol Kersey Lark are asking why. Many of her friends cannot believe that the 48-year-old lifelong resident of Bay County is no longer alive.
She probably is the most humane person, the true Christian person that I think anybody could be.
I was shocked and felt, a great loss because she was a real good friend to me.
James Skipper Lark served as Miracle Strip Amusement Park General Manager. Former company promotions director Buddy Wilkes worked with the Larks for nearly a decade. He has trouble believing that Skipper allegedly killed Carol.
These were really 2 fine people. They were both very much people-oriented people, and so it did come as quite a shock. I don't even recall either one of them ever showing any animosity towards anyone.
Wes Butler, an area disc jockey known to radio listeners as Sandy Beach, was a decorated Vietnam War hero and spent much of his life in both Georgia and Alabama. Mike Ruspan, 13 Eyewitness News.
Last night, you may remember that a Panama City policeman had threatened to arrest our reporter David Bishop as he was covering the Lark murder story. Bishop was threatened with arrest if he took pictures of the suspect, Skipper Lark. As we told you last night, Bishop was on public property at the time, and he was well within his rights as a reporter. Well, tonight we're happy to tell you that Panama City Police Chief Roger Haddix has called us here at 13 Eyewitness News to say that he agrees with us, and he apologized for the behavior of that policeman. Chief Haddix also tells us that he is now conducting an investigation of the incident. We appreciate his courtesy and his quick response.
In Orlando this afternoon, Tammy Faye Baker said she hadn't had a chance to speak with her husband. She told reporters she didn't expect her husband to break down, but added that a person's mental capacity can only take so much. Murder suspect Skipper Lark has been hospitalized. The prominent Bay County businessman is accused of Tuesday evening's shooting deaths of his stepmother, Carol Lark, and her companion, Wes Butler. Bay County Sheriff Guy Tennell told TV7 News that a Corrections Corporation of America nurse reported that Skipper's Lark's blood pressure was high and he was transferred to Bay Medical Center.
He remains there tonight under heavy guard.
Hers in a highly publicized murder case this week, but that man is now in the hospital tonight. Skipper Lark is now under guard at Bay Medical because of extremely high blood pressure. His lawyer tells us he doesn't know how long Lark will be in the hospital.
One of Lark's alleged victims was Wes Butler. Butler spent much of his life in Columbus, Georgia and Phoenix City, Alabama. Before coming to Panama City, he was a decorated war hero in Vietnam. Many knew Butler by the name of Sandy Beach when he did morning newscasts on WILN radio.
And Britain has expelled Cuba's ambassador and third secretary due to a shooting incident involving the junior diplomat. A look at the weather and a look at Gilbert coming up. Hold on.
It's a shame when you hear something like this and then you think back of all those mornings. So I did mornings with him, and then Steve Christian has also done mornings with him. And he was always there, had his news together, and made sure that he did it right. And, I mean, you don't find that in radio anymore.
More recently, Butler was the owner of a carpet cleaning business.
But today, Jim Baker was very far from that powerful image. He was out of control, and he was crying as he appeared to have a total breakdown at his trial in Charlotte. Cullen Ferguson was there.
Tammy Faye Baker says she didn't expect her husband to break down emotionally, but she added a person's mental capacity can only take so much. Mrs. Baker spoke with reporters outside her Orlando home today.
And finally, the woman that Baker had sex with to begin this whole scandal, the woman that Baker then paid off to keep quiet, Jessica Hahn, said the whole thing that happened today in Charlotte was all an act to keep Baker out of prison. She says it's time for Baker to come clean. And Hahn predicts that Baker will be found guilty. When we come back, a hurricane.
The GOES satellite now, 13.5 north, 39.5 west. If you don't have this particular figure on your tracking chart, you're like most people. That's way, way out there. Max winds are now 85 miles an hour. It's moving toward the west-northwest at 20 miles an hour. And Tropical Storm Felix, which has twice become a tropical depression and elevated again to a tropical storm, would be way up in here. But he's headed for no man's land, or no hurricane's land, we'll put it that way.
FM lured many listeners away. Late yesterday afternoon in Fort Walton Beach, the latest casualty in the battle for listeners was added to the list as WNUE Radio signed off the air for the last time. TV7's David Reinhardt was there and has the story.
Rock and roll radio AM style, a format that's been around for years, and here at WNUE in Fort Walton Beach, it's been a way of life. But FM changed the face of radio, and the often scratchy quality of AM just wasn't holding the audience. Without a large enough audience, it's tough to attract advertisers, and it's the advertising dollars that keep the rock and roll wheels turning. Thursday afternoon, after 30 years of fighting the good fight, WNUE AM was signing off for the last time.
Yeah, we have approximately, what, 24 minutes till 5 o'clock. That's it, gang. That's all she wrote.
Johnny Savage, yeah, he says that's his real name, pulled the last shift at WNUE, but didn't have too much to say to the audience. For some reason that no one could explain, the DJ mic had been taken out of the broadcast booth. The entire final day of broadcasting came on tape. In fact, even the songs were taped. Radio long ago made the transition away from actually spinning wax, as it was once called, and the process of packing up the cart tapes continued throughout the afternoon. Talk among the DJs centered around looking for new jobs.
Did you ever expect that you'd be closing up shop? No, I hadn't planned on it, to be honest with you. I really expected it as a springboard into something more than unemployment.
Any plans?
Just to find a job in radio or TV. If there's anybody out there that has a job offering, I'd be glad to talk with you.
The last 40 minutes before the 5 o'clock sign-off was spent in a review of some of the music that's come across the control board over the last 30 years. But for a station that built this city on rock and roll, it was finally time to say goodbye. In Fort Walton Beach, David Reinhardt, TV7 News.
We're only using one GOES satellite. The National Weather Service lost the other satellite, so they're looking at it edgewise, and you won't see any eye in there yet until it gets a little bit closer. They haven't been able to put any recon flights in there due to its distance. Its location, 12.8 north, 38.5 west, moving west to 20, Maximum winds near the center still at 75 miles an hour. Keep in mind that Tropical Storm Felix still exists, still headed north. He's lasted much longer than he was supposed to. It's still going on in the Atlantic, but fortunately over the colder waters up that way. Jet stream, actually a small, tight circulation type eye is indicative of a storm of powerful winds. It says 135 mile an hour winds, and they remain that way. You'll notice this reading, the north reading, is the only thing that's changed since 6 o'clock. Still 58.5 west, but now it's 22.6 north, which means it's actually moved due north. Now this could be because the eye is wobbling around. It was just in that portion of the wobble. It's very hard to tell at this stage of the game. Current movement then is they're predicting at the Hurricane Center north-northwest at 12 miles an hour. It's expected to continue that for about the next 24 hours.
The fourth hurricane of the season now has top winds of 125 miles per hour. Forecasters at the National Weather Service in Coral Gables say the system is still growing but currently poses no threat to land. At last reports, Gabrielle's coordinates were latitude 17.1 north, longitude 52.2 west. She was moving west-northwest at 17 miles per hour, and some strengthening is expected over the next 48 hours.
This has been one of those classic Cape Verde hurricanes. We started tracking it over a week ago now as it came off the coast of Africa, developed, I think, what was it, late Wednesday or early Thursday it developed, and it looks now it's making that turn, the course we want it to take. Thank goodness we are just about in the clear now. It is not going to take this potentially devastating route into the Gulf of Mexico, making that turn up into the Atlantic and hopefully even a little bit further east than this diagram would show, and that is real good news. Actually, at this time, there's a better chance that this storm will affect Nova Scotia than it will affect us.
With us tonight, but she's just kind of spinning her wheels out here in the North Atlantic at coordinates 39 north, 60.8 west, just barely hanging on tonight as a hurricane with winds of 75 miles per hour. Hasn't really shown much of any movement during the day today, and that'll probably continue through early tomorrow. Well, it hadn't just been a swell storm because it didn't hit land anywhere. It's been producing abnormally large swells in the ocean along the northeastern coastline, anywhere from 7 to 12 feet in some cases, and that certainly is high surf in that part of the country.